The I really am positive. I think because I know I am. What I was going to say was I think that we have every reason to be, because for a couple different reasons. I mean, there were some things that happened pretty immediately, and I'll repeat this when we go live. We'll talk about it some more, but
we already are, so might as well. Folks could be watching. I have no idea.
Sure, okay.
I'm waiting for the notification to pop up. It's usually the Facebook thing that informs welcome.
Well, I'm excited because I'm back on Tuesday. I'm switching up the release schedule, so I'm going to be Tuesday, Friday now, and to give me an extra day now with the YouTube channel and stuff, to give me an extra day for editing, and then so we're going to be Tuesday, Friday, and I've got some great stuff. Actually, I think a bonus episode lined up, and then we crossed over the 1 year anniversary, so we're going to do.
Hey, I should do that too, right? It's going to be like around the corner, maybe in February, something like that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
definitely should. Started when the pandemic hit, right? So it was one of these things. It's like, okay, all hands on board. Let's be creative. Let's at least see each other. So welcome. Hello, everybody. Good morning. We're literally like a Sunday morning program. It's 10 a.m. Over in Kentucky, for example, and I'm checking in from Central Europe. Welcome, guys, on Rock Dance Theater TV. Happy New Year. First off.
Happy New Year.
We made it.
We did. Somehow, some way we made it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious. Welcome, everybody, guys, who are checking in on Twitch, on Facebook, on YouTube, all of your favorite platforms, right? We're drinking coffee today, and hey, me and Aaron from over at The Rocker's Life, which I figure is so appropriate, right? Like, we want to figure out what the rocker life will be in 2021.
Absolutely.
Hopefully better, but let's wrap up a little bit of 2020. It was so dynamic, and we were literally just talking before we went on that you're going to have an anniversary of your rock podcast. I probably should be doing the same. Like, when the pandemic hit, I pretty much clicked the live button and figured, okay, let's put on a Rock Dance Theater live show, but like a talking one. Because there is none else. So
well, I think that's so what you just said there makes such an important point, because the key word for me, and everyone I talked to, everyone that I interacted with on whatever level, it didn't matter whether it was professional, creative, was pivot. Everyone was learning to do things that they love to do, but do them under the new normal. And everyone's grown to hate that phrase, and I'm sorry I had to use it, but there's nothing that I could think of that would probably summarize it better.
It's a Rock Dance Theater show. We can make our own rules and we can break them.
That's
and I'll tell you why in a second. Just please continue. I'm fascinated.
Yeah, that's what and everyone that I talked to, we discussed the positives that came from the pandemic, and case in point, I talked with Smitty, a guy from a band named Worre out on the West Coast here in the United States, and just a band that I love, and we talked about all the ways that they pivoted and were able to work through and actually have some productivity and actually be moving forward even in light of what's going on. To use and I don't want to use myself as an example, but I think for myself and a lot of others, we've used this time to try to write new songs, to try to do new things, things that we are hard pressed to do under normal circumstances. When things are so busy, you're balancing family time, work life. It's just a work life balance. And we were able to do new things creatively and continue to move forward. So when things begin to slope up towards whatever things look like in the future that we're going to be living with, we'll be ready, and we've got things to put out there. And I think that one of the things that could very well happen on the other side of this, to me, Anna, is I think we could see an explosion of creativity, especially in the rock world. To me,
I think we already did to interrupt.
Yeah, to an extent, we definitely have. And I think with rock musicians, metal musicians, I think we're sort of known as maybe emotional creatures. We've kind of got certain things about us that
no one says that out loud because we're supposed to be bulletproof, right? Well, but all soft and fluffy inside. It's just a tour goes away, a show gets canceled, and of course we're like freaking horrified, right? It's like, oh my god, the world is ending. We know it's not, but for us, it's you know yourself, you're a bass player, you have a band as well, and I do my rock dance theater thing. I'm a an animal and a stage performer pretty much like ever since I was born. So it's one of these things like, oh my God, what now? Because this is who we are. It's a lifestyle. It's it's not a day job. I laugh that. Okay, it's a 24/7-hour job for those of us that are kind of independent. But yeah, as you say.
And to add one thing to that, I think that when I say that we're emotional creatures, part of what I mean by that too, certainly we are affected, when we lose, for example, we had gotten into 2020. I had a birthday in January. February rolled around. I got to see one show. I think it was February 17th, something like that, 17th, 18th. And that was it. And it was probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, everything here had just broken wide open as far as that stuff that was concerned. But, I think part of the rock and roll spirit is to look at anything that challenges you or that tries to put you in a corner, tries to hold you down and say, no, not today, man. You picked the wrong person for that. And to keep moving forward. And so there's that rebellious, there really is that inner streak of, rebelliousness. You have that little streak in you. If you're a fan of if you're a real student and a fan of this kind of music, you have that little bit of streak in you that will come out under the right circumstances, in my opinion. And I know that helped me because it really, I felt that I made it through everything pretty well. I took a break around Thanksgiving ish, and that just to really spend time with family, in my family here in my home, and
give thanks for everything that we kind of had, because we all had to learn to live with less. But actually, like straight out of the gate, I'm very glad that you actually said the thing about number one, okay, rock and rollers being emotional. Number two, the kind of frustration emotion that you said, because I don't know about you and about many bands, but how I work with that, like I get immediately this motivation kind of way. I go like, oh, don't you like I'm gonna show you. So like my knob turns up until 11 even, with creativity, with ideas. So it was so weird actually, like with me in February, and kind of similar story, right? I managed to do a little teaching tour around cities in Europe, cities, a couple of cities in Poland over here.
Yeah.
And then literally a couple of last big tour shows, well, last before the pandemic, but first to kind of start of the year, was super fun. And I was lucky to work with Slipknot with one of their shows. And then Megadeth was passing through Europe, so I managed to see that. And that was a lot of fun, like mid, February. And then 10th of March, I literally remember 2 last days in Paris. I flew in last moment before it all shut down, and everything went loose out of the gate. So for me, it was kind of like a moment like, okay, this ain't gonna finish quick. So weirdly, this kind of cage that we were put in, right? Like isolate, stay apart, whatever, all of the restrictions right now that we still continue to follow, hopefully that's not gonna last forever. It's gonna kind of pass with the vaccine, being distributed. So fingers crossed as strongly and forever you guys playing instruments, it might be hard to play with fingers crossed, but hey, maybe you're going to develop a new post Eddie Van Halen technique on bass or guitar, right?
It's so funny you say that, because I was with my 7-year-old and 9-year-old. We were sitting on the couch the other day on Jam Play, and we were watching some Billy Sheehan tutorials, and I was showing them how he does tapping. And I can't do it.
I'm a choreographer, and I tell you what Billy does, like, blows my mind. It's just it's the next level. Like,
it is.
That very briefly a little bit later, but yeah, Billy is one of those guys that I can talk forever. But yeah, not to go too long on 2020, because how ironic, Aaron, and this is exactly why I kind of wanted to pop on with me on this kind of sum up talk. Like, one of the first memes that I saw online on New Year's Day was rule number 1: don't talk about 2020 in 2021. So hard rock and roll is just like, we're still talking about it. It's not like it was scraped, because hey, to be honest, like a lot of good happened. As much as it took away,
Absolutely.
Everything, kind of got screwed up, and people are still, struggling to kind of get back on their feet, with small businesses and individuals and entrepreneurs, aside of the big, huge touring bands. But to be honest, I kind of thought about it because I did the small balance, I think, like everyone, not making a huge list of New Year's resolutions, because I had one, and main one. Everything that I did in 2020, remote and isolated and online, I'm going to do live in 2021. At least that's kind of the plan. So, and I thought, you know what? Okay, Kiss is doing this huge live stream show, right? Kiss 2020 Goodbye. I don't know if you tuned into that.
I did.
All right. Well, why I bring that up? Because aside of everything, like the magnitude, aside of the fact that it was mid-pandemic, requiring, huge amounts of travel, huge amount of money, yada yada. But the one thing that kind of popped up in my head, I was like, you know what? Maybe that's one of these like kicks in the ass in the positive sense to keep us all motivated that, okay, no one is doing anything. The world might be ending for the moment, in the live, in arts industry, especially rock and metal and all of that. But hey, maybe that's the beacon of hope. Maybe that's the peak, turning point, actually, that okay, maybe strategies are being developed right now. Maybe there's a way to bring up all of the live shows, stream. Maybe there's a way to collaborate with medical professionals, clinics, to kind of do the tests on site, at venues for bands, to manage the tours, all of that. So, it's kind of like back to basics. And before I give the mic to you, that's why I also named the kind of the platform for 2021 over at Rock Dance Theater here, like Back to Basics.
I love it.
Back to base, that's one thing, because that's a huge inspiration for the next projects. But like, it's literally, okay, back to basics. How do we do this again? So, yeah.
Well,
what's your view on that?
I love what you said about, I'm trying to think the exact phrase you said there, and I don't know that I could capture it, but I will elaborate on it. I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. Just talking about
so much. I will not recap. We would need to like the episode later.
Well, that's okay. There was so much. You mentioned there were so many positive things. One of the things I'd like to do with you here before we wrap up, I want to share with you. I am working on a blog post for my top 20 of 20 for releases, the things that came out in 20, because one of my goals in 2021 is to expand the platform into reviews of albums, gear, and lots of different things. There was so much. Matter of fact, I didn't realize how much great stuff came out in 2020 until I went to I was going to give you the first 10. So give you a little bit of an exclusive on the post, but I was going to give you my first 10, not numbered.
Not an exclusive, because I haven't announced the Back to Basics yet. It's not like an official tour or anything, because no dates for performing are out so far. But there you go.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to give this to you and your viewers as well. But as well as that, I wanted to say that, in 20, there's this thing about, and when you've mentioned to me before, the rocker, about the rocker life, and the title of the show. The human spirit is something that to me is indomitable. You look at all the things throughout history that humans have been through, and that's not specific to nationality. Doesn't mean me in America, doesn't mean someone in Germany, doesn't mean. You look at what we've been through, though, and the things we've overcome, and I don't think this will be any different. And I think that's just something that I try to challenge myself with, and I ask myself the question, and I learned this from someone, and if I can remember the name this early in the morning, I'll credit that person appropriately. But the question that I asked myself, another gentleman, his name is Eric Worre. He's an author here, at least here in America. And then I know he's got a worldwide presence by now, I think. But the question I asked myself is, if I start to get down, or I start to get this.
Oh, Aaron got so down, he literally popped out of the stream. Let's try to bring him back, shall we?
All right.
Holy crap! That was like a perfect edit moment. Whenever I'm down, I'm out of here.
what I failed to mention, Anna, is I've actually been studying magic. So that's just a little taste of that. Yeah.
Disappearing act. I like that. You're full of surprises in 2021.
Right. But no, but human beings are so resilient to come through things like this. The question that I ask myself is oftentimes, if something starts to get me down, starts to get me feeling discouraged, I ask myself, is this the size of Aaron? Is this how big I am as a human being, as a man? Is it the size of me? Can I not overcome this or step past this? Now, and when I took a break here in the fall, I had people reach out to me. It actually surprised me. There was one listener, and I'm going to tell you his name because he's such a big supporter of the show. But his name's David Cathy, and he's from next door here in Tennessee. Reached out to me and checked on me. Hey, I haven't seen an episode. Are you okay? Yeah, doing great. Just just wanted some time with family and that kind of thing. Matt Starr sent me a text, said, how you doing, man? How's things going? And Ronnie James Elvis from a band called Luther out of Nashville, Tennessee, which you're going to hear a lot about once things start to normalize and once we were able to get the shows in smaller clubs, especially there in Nashville. What was that, Anna?
Stuffer cooking, you say? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I love about these talks, especially there is stuff happening kind of in the background. Of course, none of us can kind of go rehearse, travel, cross country, overseas to kind of really work with people. But, at least on a concept level and, planning and ideas, however much it can be still pushed back, people are working crereatively until everyone are let out of the gates. That's awesome. That's how it should be, in my mind, at least.
Yeah. One thing I was going to mention, here in the United States, I believe it was called the Music Cares Act.
Yeah.
Did pass.
I heard that. I was actually a big supporter. It was a campaign kind of open live events back across Europe as well. It was this kind of like integration moments with facilities and institutions blowing up, people creating their own content on that topic, especially all the freelancers. So yeah. Super great. I was also sharing that and spreading the word as much as I could. I have a bunch of friends that are literally, sitting still on their ass, waiting, to work, basically. So
yeah. And one of the things also that I wanted to mention was that and there it went. You see what happens first thing in the morning, Anna? No, it was that we had talked about earlier about the future of the concerts and so on. One of the things that I noticed, and this is the point I wanted to get to, early on, as things started to sort of unwrap with everything that happened in the beginning of 2020, it was maybe second quarter, it was maybe mid-year in, I believe, the UK. And they did something in the UK, and I hope it's the UK. I believe it was. I could go back and check and get back to you if I'm wrong. But they did this very interesting thing for some shows. Is at least a handful, and so the shows that were out in bigger sort of fields, bigger, what you would consider probably a stadium show for a lot of acts, except that it was out in the open fields, probably more like what you'd see where you'd see a festival. Okay. And they had these sort of pods. If you've ever been to a show where you were in a section of an amphitheater, maybe that it was sort of squared off and you had your own little box that you were in. Well, they kind of took that concept, what you would see in the middle oval of an amphitheater, and they put that down on the ground, and they had this, I don't know the dimensions of the thing, but they had your group that you came with. So if you say you're 6 people, you're in your little box, and then there's like 12 feet over, there's another box with a different group of 6 people and 12 feet. And so they just put those boxes with railing. And to me, that was a very, and still you had your face mask and everything. And to me, that was a very interesting concept. The issue with that being, how many venues are there that are set up for that? Now, so there's always going to be challenges, but the idea is there. And I think all great things that we know and enjoy today came from that initial spark of creativity and the initial idea. And I think so. That's just one example. Now, I was reading several articles. One was at HuffPost, and I looked at their take on the live music industry. And there's been so many things said. It's hard at this point for me to decipher it all and decode it all and put it into any kind of real meaningful piece of information that someone could use. But I will say this: I know it's going to get better, and I know that industry, especially the entertainment industry, with passing of the Music Cares Act. You take a city like Las Vegas, for example, in America. There are people out on the streets still holding signs. We haven't worked in a year or more, and that city depends on that, on the tourism and the shows and the ticket sales and that type of thing. Yeah. And so do the employees, or the staff, the entertainers, the sound, lighting, you name it. Those people all depend on that, and they're all hurting. So, but that industry is it's coiled up and ready to spring. It's ready to come back. So I think that we're going to see that, and I feel real hopeful of that. So I know that there are things in motion with the vaccine. I know people who are getting vaccines here right now, but of course they're mostly elderly and of the medical community. So we're going to see that begin to roll out to others. And I really believe that, as that happens, there's so many people here. Our population is, I think, based on the last census, is 328 million or something like that. So it's going to take a little.
Basically, all of the states are chucked into one border kind of, limitation, but it's pretty much the same in Europe. And also the thing you said about people integrating and kind of, rebelling and protesting that they're out of work. It's pretty much the same over in Europe. Now it got really cold, so not many people are really out there in the street, literally with signs up, but you do see that kind of thing on groups on internet and on discussion on Twitter and Facebook and all of that, because it's basically that. And let's face it, it is hard for any government to kind of navigate that, because not really tried that. Some of the industries have to be kind of frozen up still and shut down, because now it's like the turning point, as we said, at least in my mind. I see that as a huge turning point, because the vaccine is coming out. Of course, we still have the wave in, it's winter, it's this and that. So there's a lot of variables, of course, to that. And as you said, the couple of shows, and I've seen also the one with the kind of barrier platforms. I saw one band or just stage artists, I think it was pop or something like that. They were chugged into these plastic bubbles, them and the audience both. So it was literally like, playground. Percentage of oxygen, that might be questionable over 90 minutes or something. Like, I know myself, like when it gets too hot, I literally bake, just being backstage doing nothing yet. It's just so hot and it's so hard to breathe. But that's an option. The drive-ins, you mentioned Germany before we went on. Actually, I want to say Twisted Sister, but it's not that band. No, not DOHA, although DOHA was also doing quite a bit of both drive-in shows and lives. There's another band that Dragon works with, the super main punk rocker from over in Sweden.
And I think I know what you're getting. There's a female fronted metal or hard rock band, and I'm blanking on the name too.
They're very much hard rock. Hang on, I have my Instagram. This is my encyclopedia these days. It's literally, I'm blanking out. But anyway, the girls did a substantial amount of shows in tiny little cities in Germany. But that was kind of, the comfort that Germany is so huge, number one, and consisting of pretty much tiny little, cities and villages, and all of the regions, they kind of have their individual policy, a little bit like, the states. Each state has their own governor and their own laws and, restrictions or lack of. So they managed to do that. Not many European, live artists, actually opera. The opera houses did a substantial amount of live stream concerts, to be honest, full on, building shut down without an audience. The claps and the applause, for the motivation played from a playback tape, not to kind of feel, the void, because it's so weird. I don't remember who I was talking with after the Kiss show, that you do need that stimulation, for us performers. Like, you need the feedback from the audience. If you don't have that, now I remember, it was actually Marty Friedman that said, play your heart out.
Yeah.
And there's like no one. There's a bunch of dudes, a bunch of technical crew masked up, worried about their own, issues with pulling off the live stream, setting the sound, setting up the stage, the lighting, and there's kind of no one. So it could be a comeback to, early days when you did your first shows as a kid. Like I remember starting at age 6 it was, maybe, for I don't know, a bunch of class friends or whatever out there in the corridor between class, like that kind of vibe, that okay, someone is doing something weird on stage, like what the fuck. It was a group literally of your first fans or first followers that are usually your friends, or someone that happens to kind of be low key and just weird and strange. And so it kind of passed my mind. It's literally going to be like that a little bit, like starting again, especially for individual artists and freelancers, bands and stage performers that are, not stage acts of the magnitude of arenas or stadiums yet. They're literally making their way there. They're in multiple circles, not necessarily just in one genre. Maybe they're also a little bit in movies and film and fashion, kind of cross-pollinating the arts, which, funny enough, also Rock Dance Theater actually does. This is kind of my baby to do that, not to have separated rock. It's a reinvention in rock. I find that genius, but when I think about it, to kind of navigate that, through the tunnels right now, when we all come back, that's going to be a little bit tricky, because there is no solid kind of lead that, all of a sudden all of the promoters are on board, all of the bookers are on board, and everything, literally starts from, day to day. It will kind of mountain climb, and it might be like a K1 or a Mount Everest climb, but, the most important thing, I guess, is to start it literally right now. And hence the discussion as well. I started this on the other side of my profession with my medical field and with physiotherapy for rock stars. I started these Met Talks. And the thing that I wanted more than anything was this discussion of, the industry starting to talk, finding and figuring out problems. Aside of the pandemic, we know it's there. COVID is going to be with us for a while. So, okay, we know what to do to kind of minimize the spread, at least so far, when science kind of develops researching that. But kind of, posing the questions and the answers, how we can help each other in the sense of who takes the lead, who can worry about each sector, so that, we have the crew, we have the institutions and the venues themselves, we have promoters, and we have the artists themselves, managers or not, between all of that, how we kind of find ways to help each other in that, to kind of put that all together. Because I think it's purely, one woman's opinion on a Sunday morning or afternoon, if you will. It's going to be a little bit tricky, and it's going to last way longer if we just leave it kind of purely to promoters, just purely to the government, and purely to the artists themselves. We know it does not work like that in the live show setting. There's like a whole list of elements that, the audience or anyone watching right now might not realize, but there's a huge machinery behind that. So there you go. Like, I think that's the best time kind of to figure those things out and start step by step, baby steps, back to basics.
Well, yeah, it's all great points. And I mean, really going back through history, so many fantastic things have come from challenges, challenging times in history, and some incredible things have come from those times. One of the things it's interesting, I was actually talking with the head of the board of our local art gallery here in my hometown. And then we're also tied into, it's like a tri-county or 3 counties in our area that work together for artistic endeavors and things like that, and try to write grants and do things. All that said, what he mentioned to me was, he said, "Hey, would like you guys to consider yourselves booked for a streaming event." So what they're going to do is they're going to take the art gallery as it exists, and there's a stage, because they do have a performer. We've played there, and it's one of the best venues to play. I mean, it's great. And
Did you play a live show, Aaron? Sorry to interrupt, as well this year, or no? That was pre.
That was October of that was October of 19. Excuse me. So it's just before things started to happen. The last time we were there at that particular venue. No, we did not play a show in 2020. But what he has said to me in recent weeks was to consider ourselves booked for an upcoming event, which will be in the spring, and I think they're looking at April, around the month of April. And so the idea was to bring a lot of different artists and to use the art gallery itself as a stage and as a means to let artists come in, set their stuff up, play a set, which would be filmed and streamed, and then they would leave the building with their gear. I'm assuming there would be some video footage or some filler stuff that would be streamed while that was happening, and then the next artist would come up, and so it would be almost like a festival, but streamed.
We like those. I remember the name. It resembles fun and all good stuff.
Yeah. And so when he said that, we were like, yeah, that would be great. I mean, like, because if you're as an artist, you'll find ways to market your shows. If you're passionate about what you're doing, you're going to find ways to get it out there and to intrigue people to come. And so we were very interested. I immediately called the other guys and said, hey, so Dan said to me, hey, we consider yourselves booked for this thing, and all of them were unanimously, oh, great, because it was, with protocols in place for safety, and there was a well-developed plan. I think that's one of the most important things is that we've got planning around whatever the next steps are. And I think as all of us working together, you, me, other artists, moving forward, if we can work together to create plans that are safe and take the safety of others and ourselves into account, and communicate that to the governing bodies and to the people who, like you mentioned, promoters and the other people who are attached to these events, and communicate those ideas, communicate that that's a priority, then I think things are, it would be my opinion that things would move quicker if we're communicating that that's a priority for us, and that it's not just about having a great time. Music is a great time in and of itself. That is a great time, But
that's why we do it, because it's fun and it makes us happy, right? It's just it's creative, it's dynamic, it's energetic, it's everything that stands for what rock is, basically. The joy of life and the energy, and going basically against rules of any sort. Kind of making your own lifestyle. Picking out your own clothes. Creating off the top of your head, from your gut, from your heart, and just getting it out, right? That's the way to communicate with the world. This is unprecedented. This one time, rock, metal, and all of us, we have to play by the rules, but by the only rule, because I don't know about you, I happen to do this for a very long time until I drop, hopefully on stage or somewhere close to it. It's like I'm not done yet. So like, as you exactly say, communication is crucial. It's great. I'm actually, like, I was laughing how many podcasts and how many shows popped up, like, like bushfire, right? Like right when this thing started, everybody was doing interviews and shows. But that was the great part about it. Word was going out and people were supporting their project. These videos that were being created, and quarantine jams and performance throughs. I've done a bunch of those as well on multiple rock and metal artists that I either worked with, want to work with, or just I'm purely inspired by, record or any publishing, books was going out. So the info was really going out there. So I think on a promotional level, at least, and on the level of information getting spread in terms of self-promotion as well, because of course, if you're in this game, you need to know you got to promote yourself. Basically, this is your main tool, and clicking and working, your thumb muscles aside of anything else. If you want to kind of get the thing out there, like, nobody is going to do that for you unless you reach a certain level, you mature enough to kind of have that liberty of manager, booker, promo, PR that is being done for you. But until that point, it's pretty much in the trenches of doing grunt work, which, again, it can be a creative part. It can be a tricky part because, of course, it's tiring and it's hours in front of the computer. But on that level, I think 2020 has learned us a lot on how much this technology can be actually used and utilized for good, to actually, have that kind of I keep your back and you keep mine kind of thing. which was also another one of my ideas. We had all of these, like, let's say, records drop, and some of them were huge and enormous, like collaborations on cover songs or just project that could not happen otherwise, because everyone is kind of on a schedule, right? They're separated in their own world, they're scheduling years and years ahead. And this year it was possible, to name a few. I don't know your top 10 list, but AC/DC, for example, Power Up, came back. Awesome record. I loved it. I think it was AC/DC classic for me. It was like just putting on, and one of the next albums that was just like, oh my god, yes, like everything is precise as it should be, not too pretentious, not too over the top, not taking out oldies out of the cupboard that some bands tend to do back in the day, kind of laying back on their careers and fan following, let's say, that they're going to kind of buy them anyway without really effort. Not to name drop, but we know those. It was really taken care of and properly produced and mixed, and even the promo towards it. Like I don't know if the leak, for example, like from the rehearsal or the lineup reactivated, if it was a marketing thing, or was it done on purpose or by accident, that footage.
The photos from the studio that showed Brian Johnson and
exactly
Brian Johnson and Phil Rudd or something.
Yeah.
It just, well, at least in Brian Johnson's case, of course, the last tour had Axl, filling in for Brian Johnson based on some hearing issues. But then, when the photo came out after that, it was pretty cool, because he talked about that in interviews with Dean Del Rey and Chris Jericho and lots of different people. He talked about it was like one of the hardest parts for him was knowing that people had seen pictures. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Yeah, I have to put it off, but and I think that it was so powerful. Not to no pun intended. It was such a powerful moment when we found out that there was going to be not even. I guess you figure there's going to be an album when there's a single dropped, but when Shot in the Dark was released, or the teaser went up, where everyone is just so elated, because I think for all of us, in some sentimental way, that was like the shot in the air that it wasn't a shot in the dark for us. It was actually a shot up in the air to let us know that, hey man, everything's going to be okay. We're going to keep moving. Yeah, everything's okay. Everything's going to keep moving forward. And in a lot of ways, I would give AC/DC. Well, I'll save that for the list. But in a lot of ways, they
gave it away, right?
They said, I mean, in a lot of ways, you could make the argument that as far as rock and roll is concerned, they saved 2020 from a
debatable, because it's different for everybody, right? But it was one of these things, kind of as the long year kept prolonging basically, and nothing was being changed. All of a sudden, that was an extra great thing for the fans to have their spirits up, to get new music, have cool new promo, new information from the band, new interviews and talks. It's something that everyone connects to in a live setting, like people that you meet backstage or in meets and greets or at festivals, that you manage to exchange these little bits of information. And that's kind of the community of the rock world. And thanks to that, they also got it in digital form, but I think it was also so needed for everybody, and great for them as well. Great effort, great record, forever out there. So totally.
I just one quick point on that. I think that it was the timing, very much the timing of it. I think it came at the point where we were closing out of 2020. And it came at a point where I think everyone had really had their fill of some of the things that, just leading up to that. And everyone was ready to move forward in as positive and optimistic a way as possible. And they came along, and you could leave up for debate. I mean, I've seen a lot of AC/DC fans who maybe it wasn't their favorite AC/DC album. Then I've also seen a lot of publications I won't give their name because I really don't like the publication, but they said best AC/DC album in 30 years. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know how you know that, because I would be hard pressed to believe anybody on your staff actually listened to it. But
yeah, well, you know what, Aaron? I'm going to quote Mitch Lafon, actually. Like, as we know, all rock fans, all metal fans are the most educated people on earth, and they all complain. There's never, the same lineup. Why did he bend the note like that? Why were the lyrics changed? It wasn't like in the gig in 77. It's like everyone likes to complain. Everyone has an opinion, and it's fine. Of course.
A lot of people do. I disagree with Mitch Lafon just because I can.
We all can. That's the beauty of discussion. Is like you have your opinion.
I disagree with Mitch Lafon. We don't all complain. There is a large contingency of rock and metal. You're 100% right. There's a large contingency of rock and metal fans that do complain. You just pull up any forum, any page. But I actually,
with me, it's very simple. Me not being a journalist, thank God, a critic, I'm not a person from the outside. I'm very much a person on the other side of the spectrum. I'm on stage. So to be honest, I don't really pay attention to opinion like that, because it's not like I'm doing that scripted and ironically somebody's taste. Otherwise, to be honest, it would be hypocrisy, because that's my creativity, that's my work, that's my art, and it's kind of, there you go, do with it as you will, interpret it as you will, like it or hate it or not. And that's the best thing ever for me, if it's that split down the middle for people that love it and hate it, that's kind of the best compliment. Especially anyone that kind of hates it or is more like on the side, because then I'm interested, like, which nerve did I hit and why? It kind of makes me wonder, like, okay, I might have done my job well.
Right.
Because, anyone can sugarcoat and pretty much just, tell you, okay, that was cool, was good, but no constructive criticism, really. But
sure. And you
down the middle,
you said the key phrase there, constructive. I'll say constructive feedback. One thing I can't stand, Anna, is I can't stand a critic. Because just on a personal level, I'll talk about it on the show one of these days. You're growing up in small town America in Mayberry. You can take on criticism about things that didn't even happen, because the not the rumor mill so much, but it's like if you were in kindergarten and you ever played the telephone game, you whisper something to the next person, and if there's 15 people by the it's like a completely different event by the time it reaches the last person. The guys on the guys over at Metal Sludge would probably have a different take on whether or not Mitch Lafon complains much. I would
that complain, because I'm definitely not one of them. I mean, sure, everyone has a bad day or a busted night or whatever, but that that's what coffee was invented for, to lift you up. But other than that, it's just, if you have something to say it in a way like, why do you think that? And probably you're saying it because you want something to look better, sound better, or feel better on a kind of quality level. See, here's the thing, like where I come from, and I was raised over in San Diego in California as a kid,
that's right.
Way before podcasts or any of this even existed, there used to be school for journalism, for creative writing, for publishing, for a reason. And actually the people that had to do the research and kind of even, let's get on the bandwagon of theater, let's say, people had to study people like Nijinsky and Kant and, all of the philosophers, to kind of have a look back into history, to kind of not only see what has been kind of defined. And of course, these days, I'm more than happy that things have so crossed over in arts that they're undefinable. That's what I take pride in, actually, with rock dance theater, that you cannot name it. It's not a full band.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not a theater. It's physical performance. Oh, but it has fashion. Oh, but there's interactions. So like, what the fuck is it? Well, it's new. It's, one of these things that when it happens for the first time, it's hard to name and define, but that's a good thing, because there are certain, let's say, genres or elements, and I'm talking really widely about arts in general, let's say, that there's a reason why they're kind of labeled, well, in the positive sense labeled, but there are music genres, there are subgenres, but then you have category as opera, as ballet, as modern dance from the 70s and 80s over in America, created by, Merce Cunningham and Martha Graham. That's why categories exist. It's in the history, but everything that happens later and has been inspired through, other things, that's what kind of leads to invention and innovation. So, coming back to kind of criticism, like, yeah, okay, feedback is important, but whoever really, and I believe more than anything into written word, in terms of, let's say, a reviewer critique, because I remember newspapers, I remember, photographers coming up at a festival and snapping a shot while you warm up. And I still remember one, God, I was like 14, that I found that I had dreadlocks, and it was, a festival in midsummer. And I was like, oh my God, it was the coolest shot, a group at a workshop blurred out in the background, me on the front, and, something about warming up, professional skills and what it takes to be in the trade, and be in the game of performing arts. So it had a completely different feel. People felt educated, they had a say. But these days, yeah, everybody can say anything. It's like a shout out on Twitter, and all of a sudden it's an opinion. And we went far away from kind of summering 2020, but I think there is something to be said about kind of paying attention to what is being said and what is being kind of put out, because in the wrong words it turns into power, and all of a sudden it's opinion, and then it's a philosophy, and then it's a religion, and then all of a sudden it's like, what the heck? It's like, I have one religion, and that's rock and roll, right? So, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. Well, I will
absolutely.
Yeah. No, and I'll say that for example, I've seen so much commentary on Power Up, and I could summarize it like this. First of all, to me,
good or bad, as Miles Davis said, right? Good or bad music.
Yeah. Look at take Motorhead, and Lemmy's no longer with us. Look at Motorhead. Look at that body of work. Are there albums that I prefer over other albums? Yes. I prefer some albums by far over other albums, and we're allowed to do that because that's what it's all about. It's no different to walking into an art gallery and you find that piece that you gravitate towards. To me, that it's the same thing with the new AC/DC, and I'll get to the list here in a minute if you've got time. But I put that together just for you. I thought that'd be something cool to share. But I'll summarize it like this: I would rate the album. I mean, if I had to give the rating system we're going to use on the Rocker Life is fist pumps. So
what is that?
Yeah, like fist pumps, like at a concert.
Like
fist pumps,
yeah. So a workout exercise, you have like a stress ball, right? Like
it's like the stress ball system. So we'll but no, I would, for me, it would be 3.5, 4 fist pumps out of 5. And so that's the thing about a rating system like that. There's really no good or bad with it. I mean, obviously you'd rather have 4 than 1. You hope, if you're the one being reviewed, but for me, I thought there was some very cool stuff on Power Up. And the thing that, I can go back as far as, Black Ice. I think Rock or Bust was probably in a similar vein, but in this one, I think there have been some instances where the albums might have been a little too long for my personal taste. Like if you could trim a couple songs off, I think it would have improved the quality of or not the quality, excuse me. It would have improved the overall rating of the project as a whole. For example, on Black Ice, I think there were, if memory serves, there were 15 tracks on Black Ice. I could have picked probably 4 to trim, not because they're bad. I just felt like when you open an album with Rock and Roll Train, and you got a title track as good as Black Ice, that's pretty, like, that's a pretty high bar, and so if you set a bar so high, it's like on Back in Black. You take Back in Black as an example, or even Highway to Hell. Those albums the bar is so high that anything, those albums are A-level albums because everything on the album stood up to the next best track. The point being, for example, on Power Up, for my personal taste, I might pick 2 songs on there that I could trim off, and by making it a 10-track, 9 or 10-track album, what have you, I think it could potentially make it a 4.5 for fist pump out of 5 album, but it's just, but it's all personal.
our chat today. Fist pumps.
Yeah, but it's all now I'm feeling
or not. It's like as simple as that. Like, it fucking rocks.
Well, and I love that too. But the thing about that is I've just had mixed feelings, and I don't want to get off on that. But some of it was when Ronnie James Dio passed away, and then some of the other people that over here in America I've seen on People Magazine and the National Enquirer doing that, and they're they know nothing. They obviously are not a student of the game, and you know that they're posers.
I want to see anyone from the Enquirer, and just as like purely just I'm letting that out. I would want to see anyone that isn't critique, reviewing, or anything like that on the other side.
Yeah,
stepping a step on stage, spending a day in the recording studio, being in the gym, working out, prepping to a show, because they really don't know. And it's not that I keep bragging about it, but I kind of keep putting that out in the sense of the awareness of how much it's extreme sport on any level, and not only mentally. Talk about a good mixed album. I'm not the best person to say in the sense, because I'm not a recording artist, I'm not a musician, but I did do a small demo of a soundtrack to one of my pieces on Edge from 2017, and it was 40 minutes. It was literally like a movie timescape kind of thing that kind of flowed one into the other, very instrumental most of the time, hardly any vocals, a little bit of text from the show. But with that being said, like it really takes a long while. And for example, length of an album, of course, as you say, 10, 15 versus 18 sometimes, a double album, or a four-sided vinyl, for example, double CD. That's what I meant to say, for four-sided vinyl. It takes a lot of time, and even the format of creating, like in music, when you write songs, it's like literally putting on, in my comparison, I could say, as a rock choreographer and mainly as a stage performer, it's like putting out 10, 15 or 18 little stage pieces that are completely different from each other in a way, because they kind of are. They're like from A to Z, a finished little piece of work, and then you need to put that in a conceptual album, if it's conceptual. Alice Cooper had conceptual albums, and they were always written like that, and mixed and produced like that.
He was a master of that.
Totally, still is actually,
and it still is, and I'm sure a lot of those classic ones with input from Bob Ezrin, and even the newer ones, still some input from Bob Ezrin.
The latest albums, like The Stories of Detroit, I actually still have that on the list. Like, can you imagine? I didn't get to that yet.
But no, I think that reviews, just to put a bow on this and put it to rest. Put it under the tree for a Christmas analogy. It's just, what is a critic? A critic is someone who can't do what you can do. Otherwise they'd be doing it. They don't have, so for a critic, they can't do what you can do. They don't have the emotional vesting in what you've done, because they couldn't possibly, because they don't care. And I could go on, but the point being, they don't matter. What matters are the people who buy your albums, and that's us as fans. We all do this ultimately, although we're indifferent. Like you and I, you'd say, for example, we have a slightly different take on the message we put out in our platform. But at the end of the day, we're huge fans, and we love this. So it's very hard we couldn't fake talking shop about this stuff, because we live and breathe it. We get up every day. We probably check Ultimate Classic Rock or wherever your news comes from. We check that stuff. We look into it. We're part of communities on social media. It's a part of a lifestyle that we love. So to put them aside, I always prefer the term review.
Sounds way better. Sounds professional, right?
Well, yeah, definitely more than critique. But then as I think of it, I guess they call them reviews in magazines and newspapers too. So maybe I'll just start saying my thoughts on.
Actually, I think back in the day, and I sound like I'm 150 years old, right? But pre-internet, they did actually call them critical reviews. So it was both. Yeah.
Well, so if it's okay, I want to share with you. We talked about we wanted to state some of the positive and incredible things that happened in 2020. I thought there's no better way to do that. And you can look for a piece in the next couple weeks. I'll do my best to come up with top. It'd be hard to narrow 20. I think there's so many good things you forget until you get them into a list.
That's
how
true.
much great stuff there was in 2020. But
April feel like 10 years ago, right? Already. And that was 2020. That was already last year.
Yeah.
Last year.
So last year. So I'll start, and I think you'll even like some stuff in this list.
You want to comment or like sit back? Yay or nay?
Me or you?
You want me to comment on that? Like I can just
sure, yeah, whatever you want. It's your show. You do what you want, man. I'm just along for the ride. So I'm going to I'll start giving out names. I may drop a couple comments on and then you feel free to you do what you want, and then you can chime in, just interrupt me on any of them. But so one that would be for people that know me and for people that have listened to the show might be seen as a little unconventional for me, but I have on the list, and I'm not going to give numbers. I'm just going to kind of list these off, and I'll give numbers probably on the blog post, or maybe I won't, who knows. But I've got Armored Saint, Punching the Sky. John Bush, one of my favorite vocalists, and love Joey Belladonna too. So that is not a don't take that as a criticism. I love both guys in Anthrax and always have.
That's the safest political word.
Yes. Yeah. Very cool album. I'll just say it that way. Very interesting, very cool album. I've got Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown, Pressure, from the producer that they worked with to just the vibe and the feel of the album. He's Tyler Bryant, great guitar player. I actually saw these guys open, and this is one of those cool stories where you see a band for the first time. I saw them on the Axel DC tour, so Rocker Bus tour.
Oh, how cool!
So the Rocker Bus tour, after Brian Johnson had come off, Axel filled in. They came through Columbus, Ohio, went to that show. Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown opened the show. I was very taken aback, sort of. I always pay attention to opening acts, but that was one that caught my attention. They happen to have a new album this year, and I've enjoyed it a lot. So I've got a tie on one, and you'll be able to chime in on this, I'm sure. I've got Ellefson, No Cover, and Ace Frehley Origins Volume 2. So I put a tie on that because they're both
biased, right?
We might be a little biased, yeah. But no, in all seriousness, two legendary artists. You've got a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer on one side, you got a Grammy-winning bassist from a legendary metal band on the other side. Both albums, incredible track lists of covers that they did. And the thing I love about, I'll go through both quickly, with Ace Frehley, some of the songs, man, oh my gosh, you got a Beatles song on there. You've got Zeppelin, the Beatles. You've got, and I'm forgetting one that is so, is it Mountain, or is it? Yeah, maybe it was Mountain. I think they're just so, I'd have to pull up the track list, but the Beatles one was.
Still?
What's that?
You mean from No Cover still?
No, I'm just going. I was on Ace Frehley at the moment, but
yeah,
I got that. So on Origins 2, so there was the Beatles track was "I'm Down," and then the Zeppelin track was "Good Times, Bad Times," and the Mountain one I forget. I think it was Mountain. I hope I'm not wrong on that. But with Ellefson, gosh, I mean,
I'm terrible with titles, so like.
Well, it's okay.
Yours.
With each passing year, it won't get better. Anna, let me.
Yeah, trust me.
We've got to invest in what's like the stuff Joe Rogan makes, the Alpha Brain. We've got to invest, you and I, in some what is called neurotropics. I believe they call that.
Neurotropics are like melatonin drip, right? For those that don't sleep much, kill brain cells in process.
I heard the title of that. I heard them called neurotropics, and I was like, the only tropics I'm interested in is like a flight to Jamaica. And my wife will, yeah, I was like, my wife will like that too. So then, with Ace Frehley and Ellefson both. With Ellefson, man, the cover Free Will Burning. I'm trying to remember the Def Leppard track, Wasted, or it was Wasted or Let It Go. I think, Wasted. Yes, Cheap Trick off Wiedersehen. And I'm sorry, I don't have to.
Jorgensen, yeah.
Off Wiedersehen. Maybe I'll let you say that. Looking at me, you would think I could say that real well, but no, I missed the mark on that one.
Just German, so.
Yeah. So, but just great track lists, great guest artists. Ace has Lita Ford. David has Jason McMasters and just,
Todd Kearns, Doro.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I even forgot even Todd was on this. Todd's one of my favorite, my favorite guests.
I was so tuned into the no cover, and I kind of knew about it early on. The guys were doing the crowdfunding campaign for that I chipped in a little bit on, because it was the thing to do. It's just like the guys are heroes and the most legendary players out there, and especially David Ellison on bass. That's another discussion for another day, right? And ironically, actually, Tom Hazer was sending over the packages with the no cover, with the hard pressed, and the couple of cool perks like T-shirt, poster. I don't know what's in there. Yeah. Funny enough, that the European package literally arrived on 31st of December, the last day of 2020. It was past Christmas, but still, to make the day. And it's over at my other apartment by the Others Way. I'm actually going to fetch it tomorrow, and maybe I'm going to do like an unpackaging video kind of thing. To open the cover and the booklet and everything. So yeah, like I got the digital version for like I don't know how many months since whenever it dropped, digitally, when Tom sent it to me first. So I've been listening to that quite a while on repeat. It was one of the cool soundtracks of 2020, I gotta say.
Yeah. Definitely. So Rebel Yell, I forgot about Rebel Yell, the cover Rebel Yell. Like, it's just to take Rebel Yell. One of my
favorite tunes. And actually, funny, I played that song in one of my Swedish shows on the On Edge tour. My God, I remember Peter Zug. He was telling me after the show, because we kind of ended up, we were the last gig in the evening, was the small festival, and it was 40 degrees Celsius. It was so freaking hot, and we kind of opened it up at the end of the show to a jam session. So we invited the audience, we opened up the doors. It was like a theater and an indoor place, so it was just baking, and we were dead. And Peter Zaga said, he came up to me, he was like, you know what, I've never heard a spin and a twist like that, and chords being invented that you did on that track. And I was like, really? Okay, that's cool. So I guess, I played something. Hopefully Steve Stevens is not going to kill me if I find a recording of that, which I'm still looking for, by the way. But it was one of those moments, like great song, great era. And I cannot give it enough justice, to be honest. So
Billy Idol's my favorite. When people talk about the 80s, there are so many negative connotations that can be put on top of it, which I don't get, because even if you didn't like the metal in the 80s for a big part of it, how did you not like Billy Idol and Prince? And
point me to those people. We're gonna have a personal talk on that.
Yeah. But Billy Idol's my favorite, and I saw the residency in Vegas. One of the last things that I got to do really before a lot of this stuff broke, and it was not only the show, to see Billy Idol open a show with Viva Las Vegas, and the range of his voice is perfect for Elvis songs, and Steve Stevens doing his thing, and his guitar solo was unbelievable. And then he broke off into about 3/4 of the way or 4/5 of the way through the guitar solo, broke off into the Top Gun guitar riff, and the place just exploded. And man, it was just so unbelievable. And I still would love to have Steve Stevens on the Rocker Life, and he's on my dream list. So
he's a super cool dude. I mean, we never met in person. I actually saw Billy Idol over in Sweden in 2017. They were doing their summer run over at Gröna Lund, one of my favorite venues, and we didn't meet then, but I did catch a pig. That was fun. So I have that list in the collection. But we did hang out at Ryan Roxy's podcast over in the trenches, I think way back in April 2020 it was super cool, super fun. One of these moments, like, you're one of the most, inspiring guitar players, for me, being completely self-taught guitar player. And especially something that I really found out quite late, he had his injury to his wrist, right? He has his hand broken, and he developed that, incredible technique and skill around it, actually partly playing on a completely stiffened up wrist, limited to the motion when he was recovering. And that I found like, oh my God, that blew my mind. Not only on a medical level, me being a physio at the same time and a chiro, like, it's one of these things like, it might end nasty, and it might literally compromise your career, or you literally find superpower, super skills, and you come back from it. You make a technique out of that is super unique. No one plays like that. And God, the Hispanic nylon string stuff that he does,
that's incredible. Yeah,
I love it. Like that's the moment when, for everyone from like rocking out and crazy headbanging and dancing around, like the room gets quiet and everyone is like zoned in.
That's part of what I'm talking about. Yeah, with it.
I know I'm literally the one like figuring out what the fuck is he doing with it. It's like I'm checking that out.
That's part of what I was talking about with the residency, the show that I saw in Vegas. It was like he has those Godin guitars that are so unique, anyways, and then they can do things with synth and all kinds of stuff. And like just so. But in popular music, I couldn't think of. Maybe it was. And now I'm almost not wanting to say this because I'm afraid if I'm wrong, people are going to be like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." No, but I think on Spanish Fly on Van Halen 2, I think on Spanish Fly on Van Halen 2, I believe Eddie was using the nylon. I hope I'm right on that. If I'll retract it if I'm wrong. But
I'll tell you, I'm gonna do a background check and run it back. You do the same thing. So
yeah,
anyone else, guys, figure it out. You guys have computers and are fans and like to dig stuff like that up. I couldn't tell. Probably it could be, but yeah.
The point being, the point I was going to make with that is the only time I had heard something like what Steve Stevens does, and it makes sense because I can't imagine that Eddie was not a major influence to him. Such a unique style and such an incredible style, and to me, I can't imagine Billy Idol with another guitar player. It's just one of those things where you can see concerts from. Matter of fact, there may be one from it's a Cyberpunk tour. I can't remember what tour it was. Maybe from Wembley or somewhere like that. And Stevens is not there. There's a different guitar player, and it's great, but it's not the same. It's just there's a chemistry that comes out of that chemistry thing, which is
Billy Morrison, and that basically that lineup. The two guitars riffing off each other. It's that for me is that Billy Idol, but that's of course again depending on which era you kind of tune in, which era you discover these people and these artists. So there you go.
And I believe they are working on a new album, and I believe from what I've heard, Butch Walker is producing. So, but anyways, Ace Frehley. I've got Ace Frehley Origins Volume 2 and Ellefson No Cover as a tie. I've got the Nightfly Orchestra, Aromantic, one of my favorite bands out of Sweden, and really they got to be showcased a lot during the pandemic, during quarantine, lockdown, whatever you want to call it. But there was a YouTube channel called At the Movies. And so you had at least the singer, and I don't want to say his name because I'm afraid I'll mispronounce it, but great singer, loved the band. And he was one of the centerpieces of the At the Movies channel. What they would do is they would take these songs from movies, Burning Heart from Rocky IV, We Don't Need Another Hero, maybe the Thunderdome, from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, the Tina Turner song, all these great just 80s pop classics from movie soundtracks. They call it At the Movies, and they're doing covers of them. And it was him. A lot of other musicians got in on that. Just phenomenal, incredible stuff. And
this one I didn't hear either. That's cool. See, this is my news as well. I'm catching up not only on what happened in 2020, because man, I've been busy myself just creating content, putting it out, but it looks like I've missed quite a bit. It's like it's too much, right? Imagine all of that music, all of a sudden, all of those lineups, all of a sudden going on tour, like everybody collaborating with each other. And truth be told, actually, it might happen because with so much traffic right now, when things are going to start to come back and back at their basics, there's literally going to be festivals that are with lineups of 50, 60, 70 bands, backing artists over backing artists, and then a headliner with 3 other headliners. So,
and probably, Anna, it's probably, and they're probably going to, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. There was a little bit of a lag and I couldn't hear, but I'm just going to say, you're 100% right. These festivals are going to be incredible when things come back around. And not only that, for me in the United States, knowing that there's a Reading Festival and Wacken and all these great festivals
down low
in Europe, maybe they're going to be streamed for the first time and I get to pay $40 and watch that festival. I don't know. Maybe some things like that are going to happen. And that's what, I try to stay focused on that kind of stuff because that tends to make for the cool, that tends to be the cool stuff that comes out of the adversity. So, excuse me. So, the Nightfly. Sorry, I just coughed that in your ear. Apologize. So, the Nightfly Orchestra, Aromantic. I really enjoyed that album. Ozzy, Ordinary Man. An album that, frankly, I didn't know how much I was going to enjoy, but I tell you, every time I go.
And you know what? The problem is I cannot listen to it too much because I literally cry. It's like it has this kind of vulnerability and sensitivity about Ozzy. It's kind of melodic, kind of balladic. It's like literally splitting Ozzy in half and showing kind of his heart, like, you know, not really of darkness, but, you know, and a really, you know, artist forged in battle. It was just like, yeah, I love that album.
It's a very, very good album.
Like
Ozzy's voice, and this is one thing I'll say about Ozzy, in my opinion, has never gotten the respect and the props he deserves. And I'll get through this quick, Anna, if we're running late. But I
don't have a gig to attend to, so we're good for a couple of minutes before we bore everybody to death.
Yeah. Well, so he's never had the respect and props he deserves as a singer. First and foremost, his voice is a complete entity of uniqueness unto itself. I've never heard anything like it. Every time I start to hear him sing, it reminds me of moments in life. You know, it was part of the soundtrack of my teenage years into my young adulthood in my 20s. Still young, but you know, but in that particular period. And it's just it brings back memories. I can hear Changes or Goodbye to Romance, and I think about people who have passed on that I think of often and learn so much from, and you almost get emotional talking about it. But yeah, his voice has that effect on me. It grabs me. I can remember these key moments in my teenage years with certain songs. It's incredible. So I really enjoyed that. Cherie Currie, Boulevards of Splendor, one of the queens of the foundation of rock and roll for females, you know, as a part of the Runaways. And that album produced, I believe, by Matt Sorum. I'll double check myself on that. I'm pretty sure Matt Sorum produced that album. Some great tracks on there. And Cherie Currie's just,
say the least. Not only.
Yeah. I've never told my wife. Cherie Currie may be my my rock and roll crush. I don't know. But
really?
Oh man.
Watching, if she's tuning in, it just got out.
Yeah, right.
So Sunday 2021.
I just better go out myself when this is over and just get it on the table. That way I'm not in trouble. But no, so Boulevard of Splendor, just a cool album, just a cool rock and roll album. And she is in good form. And I mean, musically, but also visually. And so the Rock and Roll Residency EP, these guys, unfortunately, now they are signed to EMP label group. So another tie-in to David Ellison.
Very small world, right?
Yeah. But I will say this, man, Jeremy Asbrock, I will say, is one of the coolest guys. Sent him a text message the other day. Thanked him for all he has done for me in 2020. In 2020, and his help with the Rocker Life. He's made 3 appearances, I think, has been on the most successful episode of the show. Has just been someone who's never said no to me. He's always been there, just someone I consider a friend, and he's just a very cool guy. And same for Philip Schaus as well. And then but that album, the Rock and Roll Residency, one of the finest rock and roll EPs I've heard in so long, and it deserved much, much more attention than it has received in a lot of ways. And if you could, I don't have time to get into them, but you can go and dig and look into some of the players on that album. It's a who's who of players, you know, and if you know anything about like the Nashville scene, but even beyond that, you know, for example, Eric Brittingham from Cinderella covers a lot of the bass on that album, just different things like that.
Oh, wow.
Stryper, Even the Devil Believes. Michael Sweet has this thing about him where I look up to him so much for a couple reasons. In my interactions with him and in life in general, he strikes me as the real deal. He's just the guy's the salt of the earth. He's a good dude, and he is just someone I respect and look up to. And this album, from songwriting to execution to production to sonics, it is just unbelievable front to back. And there are many things that I just can't put up against it. I mean, regardless, you know, if you take it for what it is in and of itself, the artwork, which I left out, they have Stan Decker does the Stryper album covers, and I'm big on art and albums. It's just such a big part of the experience.
visual art, not to cut you off either, basically what we see is what we perceive in a way, and it's super important. Like, it's one of these things as a kid, you love opening the tape box, you love opening the vinyl, you look at the poster, like all of that. Like we've all done that. That's why everything that is kind of, still material that you can smell, the glue, the print, all of that real thing, it will never have a comparison to any of that. I mean, probably if not the pandemic, one of the cool things is like we would not be hanging out between, Kentucky and, Central Europe. Probably it would take a while for me to tour over there, for example, or you guys come over and do a real kind of talk, interview, chat, whatever. But it's one of these things. The real thing is never going to be a substitute. It can be an addition, and certainly we should use it as that, and take kind of the knowledge and implement it, and not backtrack too much, because it's about getting forward. Okay, that we already know, learn from it, not do the same mistakes, so that hopefully all of that gets wrapped up really quick. And I think it applies same thing to kind of creativity period, or even methods of marketing, or finding your own kind of moment and place with self-promotion, and kind of reaching out to audience. You need to figure all of that out, but that's also why you have experienced artists that you can look up to and kind of learn from. You have books to read, kind of a self-help tutorial things or whatever, but again, nothing is going to really teach you like being out there and discovering all of that. All of a sudden, meeting somewhere at a venue with someone, figuring out why a contract should not be signed, looking at the elements that might get you into trouble as an artist. And trust you me, I've read a couple of contracts that I literally laughed in the organizer's face. It was as much as it could be pushed. Like, you're basically what it said, like I can quote one, it was selling out your copyright indefinitely, like to any your financial rights, like on a silver platter. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, for real?
Yeah.
And the ironic part of it was actually a pretty big public institution. It was called the so named, proclaimed, Institute for Music and Art. So it's kind of stood by something, but man, like the lawyers or people in charge there, they had no clue. It was copyright out of like from a corporation or something. So the ironic thing is I was actually, long story short, invited to talk at a conference. So I did. I never signed the release. I never signed, the passing of the copyright and all of that. And they still owe me, in the sense, because it was kind of connected, right? Like, you give us everything and we give you a sum that we kind of, accepted on as your fee.
Wow.
So there you go.
There's so
if not now, you got a lot of time. Like, when you get it, hopefully soon, for a stage gig or, recording deal, whatever it might be, just read.
Well, there's a book over my left shoulder by Donald Passman. I've read this book. Maybe I've read it twice, most of it twice. All You Need to Know About the Music Business. I had to squint because I don't have any glasses on. But so I've had that book since I was 20 years old, maybe 19, 20 years old. And one word of advice I would give to anybody. And when we were working on our EP, there was the gentleman, and I formed a close friendship with him and working relationship with him. His name's John Howard, and he's at Oakwood Studios in Lexington, Kentucky. Great, fantastic studio. And he actually suggested to me, he's like, Aaron, I would recommend that you go out on the internet, find you a contract that you're comfortable with, bring it to me. Let's talk, and let's let's work through the points. If there are any points that we differ on, let's talk through that, so that you feel comfortable. Because we had a bad experience in a studio previously, and he knew that. That's the kind of person you want in your corner. In summary, you want those people who are looking out for your best, because contracts, like you said, they're binding. And if you put something like that in there, you're giving away,
right?
if you're giving away your intellectual properties and things in perpetuity, it can be devastating from a career point of view. But yeah, but just wrapping up on Stryper, Even the Devil Believes on my list, not just with Michael, who I think very highly of, but also the new addition. Perry Richardson had joined the band just at the previous album, but he was committed through other albums. He didn't get to play on the album, but he was on the tour. On this album, it's his first studio appearance, and the bass is it is beastly on this album. It is so appropriate and so fitting, and it just, like, it's just great.
By now a little bit, Aaron, like everything that is bass driven and electric guitar driven, it's like that's where you're gonna find me. So it's already convincing. When you bass, it means it's a solid song or a solid band. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, and just quickly, when I messaged Matt one day, we were Matt Starr from ASO, we were going back and forth, and I sent him a picture of where his drum head is on my wall. Just so happens one of Robert Sweet's is next to his, and he said, "Well, I feel honored to be next to Robert Sweet on the wall of rock." And I said, yeah, so that's you have another reference there. I mean, to his drumming is like he's in his 20s again, just blasting it. And then of course, Oz Fox. I just wanted to say, a guy that's been in my prayers for a long time. He has faced brain tumors and things. It's pretty public. It's out there, and he's fighting it. And I believe about to have some surgeries up and coming. And just as someone that's been on my mind a lot, and I met him, had the pleasure of meeting him in Nashville a couple years ago. The sweetest, most soft-spoken, polite guys I've ever met, and just I just really am praying for him, thinking of him often, that he pulls through everything, and
vibe that everything is good. But with today's technology and a lot in neuroscience, this I can actually tell you because I had the pleasure of working with European consultant for neurosurgery, Professor Zobek. He's Polish of origin, and basically this guy takes out any kind of tumors and growth out of a human brain between the tiny little vessels and cells, through a microscope. He works with robots and all of that. So I can tell you that technology and the development on neurosurgery and science and oncology on that level is actually huge. So if he's in good hands, pretty much the rest is just technicalities to go over surgery. So
absolutely. And then lastly, AC/DC Power Up. We've already hit on that one pretty good, but a great
last year. Such a good album.
Last year, yeah, great album from AC/DC. To hear Brian Johnson's voice just crushing it again, and to hear Angus doing the thing that he does, and and just to hear Cliff Williams and Phil Rudd, driving that rhythm section, and and not to neglect Steve, not the
proper piece of work. That's all I can tell.
It's,
feel it tight and as it should be, and no mistakes there. That's what we love.
Not to neglect Stevie stepping in for Malcolm, which is so appropriate, and he killed it when I saw him live. When I saw him on the Rocker Bus tour with Axl, Stevie just killed it. And I wanted to say some very cool things on Power Up. That there's a song that I always come back to. I think it's the title. I think it's "Kick You When You're Down," and there's just this Delta blues kind of riff from Angus. It's one of the most.
Like one of these things. It's just one of the cool. Your soul. It's just a direct connection. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the same song that we're thinking of. Yeah, I really like that one too.
So I'll stop there, and everything on that list speaks for itself, anyways. And then I'll elaborate. I'm going to attempt to do a video and a blog post with that from the Rocker Live. We'll be doing some enhancements. We just passed our 1-year anniversary on Veterans Day, and we are now. Thank you. Happy one. Yeah, I appreciate that. And we're going to be doing some giveaways. So if you're watching and come over, of course, always watch Anna's stuff first, and then you can come over and take a peek at what
control, right? Like you go through Web Dance Theater and it's going to lead you elsewhere.
That's right. And you got to come on. You got to come on too, because I know there's some things you're wanting to talk about. We're going to be doing some giveaways. I want everybody to watch. Go ahead, Anna. I'm sorry.
For sure, like as I say, I'm constantly waiting for my phone to ring. Trust you me, my suitcase is by my door at any given time. It's just one of these things. Waiting to get back to the practical side of the rocker's life. But yeah, quickly to sum up, Aaron, and of course we can go for like hours and hours. We initially wanted to do 30, 45 minutes. Nah, that's never the case. Sorry about
works that way, does it? It's probably my fault, Anna. I'm sorry.
To never miss on another, brag about all of the good things and inspirations and stuff. But yeah, real quick to kind of sum this up. How do you think the rocker's life is going to look in 2021? What are we looking forward to in terms of nothing but, everything bigger, better, and stronger, hopefully when, vaccines take effect, countries slowly open up, I don't want to say imply. No, that's the other word. See, that's what happens when I talk for an hour and a half.
I know. I think I know where you're going, and I think I think you.
Thank you.
I think that as far as I think there's going to be some familiar things returning, but I also think that there's going to be some additions and some things that are going to be kept from the here and now. The way that I see it playing out is just I would mention it to you that scenario of you've got a Reading Festival or Wacken or one of those things over in another country. I'm here in the United States, and vice versa. You're in Poland or you're in wherever you're in Europe, and then maybe there's something going on in the United States, a Rock on the Range or something like that, and maybe we're able to now have a virtual ticket and have that event streamed, and that's never happened before. And so maybe as things continue to move forward, we get some innovative things like that we can, that we can look forward to. I know for me, the thing is I'm going to keep doing what I do, and the time that we have as far as downtime, and when live shows are not happening, we were able to work in the creative realm and really focus on that. I've picked up one of the things I've been studying is music production. So on top of just working on new songs and things like that, I've been learning about mixing and learning about that type of stuff. I've tried to put some time there, and then, but it's also enabled me to focus on family and on those individuals around me that my close friends and loved ones. So I've looked for the rocker life to be still coming around to what we have known in the past, but I look forward to also have some new additions. So I think all optimistic, all positive, and that's all I can say for sure. And I can't even say all of that for sure, but I feel like in as far as the big picture goes, that's how I see it playing out. And I also see the return of live shows. I don't see it myself. Maybe I've heard some people say, "Oh, we're going to have live shows in March." It's hard for me to think that it'll happen that quickly. And here's why. And here's the only reason I say that.
And again, everything happened in a day, right? That's one of my favorite kind of, standpoints, that everything can change and pivot. Like the thing is, we don't know. It's like we're on third day in from 2021 on a Sunday, and literally as it all unwinds, I'm optimistic. I was raised
I'm very optimistic too.
Happy land, beaches and sun. So of course the pessimism kind of gets to you because it's so fatiguing that it takes so long. But at the same time, each and every single day we can, exactly as you said, we can focus on not only developing new skills, number two, finding and figuring ways out to bring this back, because it's kind of in our own hands. We don't have the power to stop the pandemic necessarily, but ironically we do. We know what we should have been doing for a whole year, meaning not necessarily gathering when we don't have a reason to, and meaning, not a festival, but just kind of, I just need to meet my people outside somewhere or indoors on beer because I cannot, live to drink not for a day. It's like, come on, there's necessities and a little bit smaller necessities. That's my opinion.
I'll just say that, like what you were saying, I agree 100%. I think it's coming. What the speed is, I don't think anyone knows, but I think it's coming. And now with the vaccines in place, from all of the news and what media outlets are saying here in the United States, the new strain that's been detected, the vaccines in place are going to be effective against those strains per the scientific and medical community. So that gives me a lot of hope. And I think before we know it, we're going to see the first small wave of shows open up. And then I think it's going to take that first small wave of shows to sort of figure out what works here.
I think it's going to be a learning curve with the first ones, exactly. And then implementing kind of the experience and the knowledge. Funny to throw in Kiss for literally a second here, not to start another episode for an hour. When I watched the pre-show, it was exactly one of my thoughts, to kind of maybe have that idea of figuring out, however small format or big, of course, bigger stadium and arena shows can afford it, to have, medical companies to actually have them on board and have them in collaboration on site, doing constantly testing, disinfecting, having everything kind of in place, and within a system where, there's trails that staff passes through the band. What's more challenging is, of course, the audience, and basically managing the crowd, navigating with audience, because, for us, and I've done a couple of shows last year in 2020, there were outdoor shows, but still navigating my own safety, even within an outdoor environment, wasn't the simplest, because it was a festival that had over 3 days. They had, I think, like 4,000, 5,000 people in a small city. And that was quite tight. And I did see people without masks and very much on top of each other, whatever that means. So, again, it's, as you say, this constant discussion and implementing knowledge and things that actually work out. And very much developing new, I think, professions and skills, to be honest, because recording studios or filming studios that are actually doing the live streams, well, let's say that technology is very much on syndicated TV shows and all of that, but not necessarily in performing arts. So I would imagine that people that used to shoot music videos, that are in TV, in commercial or non-commercial work, basically kind of, having pop-up small businesses and companies coming together with their friends, and all of a sudden, supporting a rock dance theater show, giving a possibility to stream that, to record that, and have another artist that does something on a smaller scale, having a bigger artist do their own thing, coming in with their, staff and crew, and kind of, maximizing, let's say, a venue, a location, a day of work, capacity of internet, you name it. So in my mind, it would be creating basically new jobs, to be honest. And I think I've already seen that, but the platform, the management for that would be needed to actually someone delegate that, because I don't think anyone realizes how many people are still out of work and very much would need that ASAP, even if it's a one-off show, one-off gig, rehearsal, live streaming event, testing event, whatever. So in my mind, it would be that, it could be a hypothesis, maybe something, kicks off, and then, okay, we need to come back a couple of steps back then again. But, I think it's going to be parallel, both the big venues and the small kind of venues, the one that, manage to kind of live themselves up. Business-wise, meaning, the small clubs, the small jam places, the small galleries, small festivals, all of that, just different locations, maybe outdoors, as you say. So I think it's going to be literally all of that before see what works best, and then before we kind of, look back on the crowds again in a couple of years. It's not going to happen in a couple of months. Let's be realistic. But to stay positive, on that note, is just, let's keep doing what we're doing.
Absolutely.
To the best of our ability, I think.
Well, and to be, for you said it, but I couldn't make that any better or any more eloquent, Anna. So I won't add on to that, because it was what you said was perfect.
Stop there. Because anything else is going to completely ruin it.
Stop right there. I will tell you, and I still owe you a T-shirt as soon as I get them in hand anyway. So
Yay!
Yeah, so I still got the address, I think, and if I don't, I'll just say, hey, I lost this, and you won't be surprised. And
all right,
I'll give it to you.
One and whatever you wanted, and then you also do your giveaway thing. So watch, guys, smash the follow on Rock Dance Theater TV on all platforms, and do the same thing on the Rocker Life podcast with Aaron himself. So there you go, 2 in 1.
Thank you so much. And I will say, in the giveaway, I just had gotta find the camera. So a boost pedal, one of the finest boost pedals on the planet, made in America, a pedal very much like this, either this model or one just like it from Solo Dallas. I spoke with Phil from Solo Dallas. That'll be part of the giveaway. We got lots of stuff from different bands we're going to be giving away. I'm reaching out to everyone that's been on the show pretty much. And so anything that we can come up with, we're going to give away, just to say thank you and just to keep spirits up, to keep just what Anna and I have been talking about, keep things positive and optimistic. And with that, I will get back. I will say thank you, Anna, for having me as on this live stream. I really appreciate you reaching out, and I've enjoyed talking with you and talking shop with you. You're a smart one.
So you know what? Yeah, it is what it is. I'm going to wrap this up with also thank you so much, Aaron, for coming on a Sunday. Happy New Year, everybody. Stay safe, and see you as always on another one of these. Yeah.
Absolutely. You'll be on the Rocker Live soon, and we'll do it again then.
Awesome. Let's do that. Part 2.
That's right. Boy, we'll pick it up where we left off.
Hasta la vista, baby.
That's right. Happy Sunday, everybody. Have a happy New Year.